If you've ever felt that kind of stickiness in your thought process where you know what you want to say, but sometimes you just can't formulate that thought very well, we've all been there. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to use reading as a skill to have much better quality conversations, be able to read non-fiction books a lot better than fiction books, and generally enter your smart girl era, because I have learned so much of what I know from books. And the thing is, a lot of my favorite authors have learned what they know from books as well. Reading is one of the most highly recommended skills from the top philosophers, business people, entrepreneurs in the world, because it's a skill that teaches and keeps the mind engaged. And really and truly, we all just need a lot more to talk about, a lot more quality conversations to have, and a lot bigger words to use. Reading is the way to get you to that place where you can use the perfect word to describe exactly what you're thinking, and you can back it up with principles and references and quotes from your favorite authors. And I think the first point to get into is committing to either being a physical book person or a Kindle person. I am a Kindle person, and I'm sometimes an Audible person, but I find that my Kindle and my Audible reading or listening on the Audible serve very different purposes. And when I previously made a reading video, I was very against Audible because I wasn't able to absorb the information as well as I wanted to when I was listening to them, and I didn't really like the fact that I couldn't take notes down as soon as possible, and I would most often listen to an entire book, completely forget about it and what I learned from it very soon after. I may as well have not read the book. And if you're trying to pick up reading as a completely new habit, I would sprinkle in a few fiction books and not go straight in with non-fiction, because I think non-fiction can be a little bit harder to grasp for most people. I do have the odd few friends who engage way better with non-fiction rather than fiction, but if you're picking up this brand new habit for the first time, or you're trying to get back into reading as an avid reader before, I think trying to sprinkle in a bit of both is the best way to engage yourself a bit quicker, if not just going straight in with fiction and your favorite genre. If that is a juicy murder mystery or a romantic novel, whatever floats your boat, pick that up first and get stuck in. As with any goal, you need a why. Everyone needs a purpose when they're reading. And there's a quote that, everyone should have a purpose for their reading, and think about how that purpose is being fulfilled during the actual reading. Because if we're trying to enter our smart girl era, we are trying to learn, we're trying to expand our vocabulary, we're trying to expand our knowledge of principles that back up the concepts that we want to be talking about. So be intentional with the books that you're picking and understand why you even want to read them in the first place. Now, as with any other goal, it's really important to try and track your progress. And the way I do this is by putting books and reading time into my weekly calendar, which have come from my monthly goals. So for example, this month, because I'm trying to get back into reading, I've set myself a goal of trying to read 2 books. And the only way I'm going to be able to track my progress through these books is knowing when I'm actually making that progress in my calendar. That is how I work, because I am type A and I do like the organizational aspect of it, but I don't spend any more than 20 minutes a day reading right now, just because I am trying to build this habit, build this muscle, build this discipline of reading daily. So I have picked ahead of time 2 books that I want to get through this month. And I've got the total page numbers and I've divided them up by the amount of days in the month. And this is allowing me to track my progress quite easily, because every day when I wake up, I power up my Kindle and I complete the set amount of pages for that day. And most of the time, especially this month, because I'm really enjoying the book I'm reading this month, I'm just going way past that goal. So I'm using my allocated pages for each month as a bare minimum right now. But breaking down the total amount of pages into the number of days in the month, especially if you have monthly reading goals, is a really carefree, easy way to set that goal, stick to it, just fill it out. All you have to do then is pick the book up and read the X amount of pages that you have for that day, so that you're not trying to find the time to read and then figure out what you want to read and then decide, oh, how long do I actually want to read? You're doing all that hard work up front, and then it allows you to track that progress as you go through. Now, if we're entering our smart girl era by reading non-fiction books, which by the way doesn't have to be the case, but we can talk about this in another video, understand that non-fiction books aren't actually meant to be read like fiction books. They are trying to convince you or introduce you to new concepts or a new way of thinking, like an idea or an argument, using various bits of evidence experience through the book. It isn't a story to be read word for word with a plot and characters like a fiction book could be. That being said, psychologically, I personally struggle to skim through a book. I get FOMO for certain words or sentences that I might be missing out on because personally, I'm also trying to expand my vocabulary, so I'm on the lookout for all these tiny bits of detail that could contribute to a wider idea. However, one thing I like to do for non-fictions in particular is read the introduction, the conclusion, and then the chapter list to understand how the author has actually put this book together. So how has this argument been formed? And this will allow you to be a bit more specific, engaged, or intentional about the chapters that you definitely want to read versus the ones that you maybe don't, if that's how you want to approach non-fiction books, which you can. And then it also goes without saying to document your progress and learnings. If you're entering your smart girl era and you have this intention of wanting to have better quality conversations and increase your vocabulary, documenting the new additions to your vocabulary while you're tracking your progress is just a great way to kind of double whammy, habit stack that intentional goal. It's also a great reason to make another database on Notion to try and track your book progress learnings. Goodreads is also a really great way to do this, or simply just kind of reflecting on a book when you finish it, whether that's in your Apple Notes or in a written medium. And some great ways to try and reflect on books is thinking about ways that you'd explain the book to a friend, 3 key takeaways from the book that you've got, or 3 ways that you're going to apply principles that you've learned from the book to your own life. And use these books and your learnings and your newfound knowledge to actually just influence your life going forward. Bring up the fact that you've just finished this book with your friends or your colleagues in your next conversation. Bring up the topics that you've learned about in the book into your conversations and expand on them with your friends. Debate them. Try and get different perspectives on a book. A lot of the things I personally learn in books completely blow my mind because for me, they contextualize or verbalize a lot of the concepts I sometimes have in my head. And for me, it's really mind-blowing sometimes to see it written as one sentence or one paragraph. And I'll talk about that with my partner and my friends and my wider circle. And something I love to do is actually, if I do come across a new word, and if you have a Kindle, a really great feature is being able to highlight a word, look at the definition, look at the synonyms and the antonyms. And most of the time, if I do come across a new word that I think would make sense in my own language and my own vocabulary, I will actually just try and use it in a couple of the conversations going forward. I think naturally as humans we will do that. The more you read, the more your vocabulary develops by itself and the better you do speak. There are books that are well known for increasing your vocabulary and increasing the quality of your own conversation and the way you speak just by virtue of how it's been written. But don't forget to do that because you don't want to kind of get through a book and kind of dump it in the corner. Think about the ways you can actually just apply it to your real life and use it to better your life as a smart girl in her smart girl era would do. Now, if you have set reading goals before or you struggle to actually set goals and accomplish them, I would recommend watching my video on what to do when you don't know how to set goals, because this video is basically how I transformed my approach to goal setting and stopped failing at setting all of my goals and stopped having to write the same goals at the beginning of every year hoping that I would achieve them by magic. And if you are starting your book reading journey, let me know what your first book that you're going to read is in the comments, because we have to be intentional. Pick the book before you decide to read so you know what you're going to be reading and you know how it's going to be done. Take the guesswork out of hitting your goals and take the chance out of becoming the smart girl in your smart girl era. And if you're still here, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next week. Lip gloss break.